If you're looking to file a VA disability claim and you don't know this information, you're going to have a rough time. So I'm going to cover the bare essentials of what to expect and what to know about your VA disability claim so that you are foundationally prepared, and this could make or break your claim. I'm Jordan Anderson, VA Claims Academy. Let's get straight into it. First of all, let's tackle this right away because so many people get this wrong in understanding what VA disability actually is. Your VA disability rating provides you a tax-free, essentially passive pension for veterans who have had diseases or injuries that were incurred or even aggravated by their military service. And a lot of people think this is some type of handout or that it has some negative implications on your future. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is simply the other side of the agreement, the one that you signed during your enlistment. You swore an oath to go ahead and serve to the best of your abilities and fulfill the certain duties, follow honorable orders. And there was a whole nother side, which is, hey, if this happens, if you're dinged up due to your service, you are going to get these benefits. And it has to be 50-50 from both parties. So all it is, hey, if you served honorably, this is the other side of that. You are entitled to this compensation based on your real story, which is what we're going to get into right now. So number one, how do you even file a VA disability claim? And then I'm going to get into what you need in order to file. So there's a couple of options to file just to make sure that you're not intimidated by the process. You can file on your own on VA.Gov. It's actually it's a pretty good site for a government website. It goes pretty smoothly. I'll leave a link to that site in the description below. You could also have a veteran service organization, a VSO, that could file for you absolutely free of charge. It may take a while. You might be in a waiting line for a bit. But either way, it should not stop you from filing your claim. And even if it takes a while, it doesn't even matter. And I'll tell you that in a second because you won't lose any cash. What are the three things that you need for every disability claim? This is where the meat and potatoes is, so make sure you listen up. First, you need an in-service event. This was maybe you have PTSD because, boot camp or hazing, something like that. You have an injury that you fell on, during PT and you hurt your back. That's an in-service event. That's number one. Number two, you need to have a current diagnosis of this condition. So if you went to the doctor 10 years ago for your back but haven't been there since, your diagnosis is not current, so you wouldn't have that requirement, right? So you need a current diagnosis, meaning that you're getting treated currently for a chronic condition. That's number two. And finally, number three, you need a nexus. All a nexus is a service connection. So whatever connects this condition to service, it could be a Nexus Letter, more on that in a bit, or it could just be the fact that you were diagnosed during service and you have those medical records. That qualifies as a nexus. So just to summarize, you need an in-service event that occurred, a current diagnosis, and finally, a nexus to tie the condition to your service. So let's go through a quick example of what that actually looks like so it doesn't sound like gibberish. Let's say that I was serving in the Marines from 94 to 98. I was not encouraged to go to, sick call. This is just an example. And I fell off, a ladder on the flight line and hurt my neck. There was nothing in service medical records, so I'm starting from a tough spot. But I do have that in-service event. I fell off of something, hurt my neck. Let's say that I'm going to the chiropractor currently, as well as my physician, so I have the current diagnosis. They say I have a cervical strain. All I would need is essentially a Nexus Letter at that point from my chiropractor, from my physician, maybe some specialist that looks at the neck, saying that, hey, it's at least as likely as not that this in-service event was indeed the cause of this veteran's current neck condition. And I could have a really good chance at winning that claim. Even if you don't have your medical records, don't be too discouraged because there is a good shot. Again, with Nexus Letters and especially with personal statements, I'm not going to get into that today, but if you're curious about that, just watch the other videos on my channel. But there are things that you can do to really bolster your evidence and make sure that your true story is heard by the VA. So now moving on, I mentioned earlier that, even if it takes a while to get help to file your claim at a VSO, for example, doesn't mean you have to lose money, right? Because it's a monthly income. Clearly, if you're taking a long time, maybe people think that you're losing money. It couldn't be farther from the truth if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is this. I mentioned the VA.Gov website. Again, the link is in the description below, but it's just VA.Gov. But you should go ahead, and if you're considering filing a VA disability claim, I would make sure to, as soon as possible, do what's called an intent to file. All you have to do is go to VA.gov, go to where it says file a VA disability compensation claim, and walk through the steps, and it'll let you know, hey, your intent to file has been completed. What this allows you to do is it opens up a 12-month, a whole 1-year window to where as long as your claim is filed within that window, you get back paid retroactively to that intent to file date. So if you filed that intent to file today, but you didn't finish your claim until 9 months from now, you still would get paid a big lump sum going from today, provided that you get granted your claim. It's also important because oftentimes, we as the veteran, we disagree with the VA's decision, the first couple go-arounds maybe. First of all, that's completely normal. And I will tell you that intent to file is so important because let's say if you have to do a higher level review, which is basically saying, hey, you know what, VA rater, get me your manager, I want him to look at this, or I want her to look at this and get a new pair of eyeballs on this same information. Or you could say, hey, you know what, that's my fault. I didn't write a personal statement that was very compelling, or hey, I was missing a Nexus letter. Let me do a supplemental claim where I'm adding additional evidence and kind of going through the process again. So if either of those two happen and you do it within, let's say, 1 year of your rating decision, that intent to file date is important because, again, the back pay goes to that intent to file. So that, I can't stress enough, I don't know how many times I said this, we'll call it ITF to be short, but make sure you go ahead and file that as soon as possible if you're considering a VA disability claim. I've had more than a few individuals, but one in particular, who they've essentially filed their claim right as their intent to file was about to expire. They came back with a denial, had to add new evidence, went back and forth. There was FOIA requests for the CNP examiner. I won't get into all of that, that's in the weeds. But ultimately, that is to say, it took almost 18 months, 16 to 18 months from their original intent to file date to get the approval, and they got a big old lump sum tax-free check for more than $60,000 because of locking that in. So that's how important it really is. Another common question that I get is, how long does a VA disability claim take? It can vary. I've seen claims turn around in 4 months, 3.5 months, or it could take 7, 8 months or even longer. But the bottom line is, if you present your information in an organized manner, I would file all of your conditions at once. That's another common question. Hey, I'm going to overload the rater. I don't want to file all of my 14 conditions. The answer is yeah. As long as you're not throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and you have compelling evidence, again, the 3 things that we talked about earlier, which is an in-service event, a current diagnosis, as well as a nexus, go ahead. Everything that you qualify for those 3, absolutely file all at once. And you would be surprised if you have a well-organized claim at how fast the VA can actually move on making a favorable decision on your claim. Finally, let me go ahead and answer this question because it could save you $1,500 or more. And that is, do I have to have a Nexus letter? Again, we talked about a Nexus letter. This is a document from a doctor who is essentially stating and giving their opinion that your condition is at least as likely as not connected or due to your service, military service. The answer is no. If you have your condition documented in service, you have your official diagnosis, and let's say it hasn't been like more than 10 years or so, where the VA can say, hey, maybe this was just old age. We see that you had it then, but it's been so long, maybe it's just old age that you have it. No, you probably don't need a Nexus letter. Where you primarily need a Nexus letter from is when you don't have necessarily the in-service documentation and you really have to kind of try to patch that up with a new doctor or specialist, preferably with their opinion. And that could be a very powerful tool, but be careful because it could be expensive and there's all sorts of things. Look at my channel because some of the companies really aren't that compelling because they're looked at by the VA as being Nexus letter farms. So use your judgment, but that should at least steer you in the right direction where you even need one or not. All right, fellow vets, I really hope this video was helpful for you and inspiring. If you are sitting on the sidelines and you're saying, I don't know if I should take action, do that intent to file, take action. You would be very surprised at how easy this process actually is if you just educate yourself a little bit. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.